Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Popkait's Corner. This week, unfortunately, it's just us. I know, no special guest, but we're talking about one of our favorite things, which are sitcoms. Woo!
We love sitcoms.
We love sitcoms.
Caitlin?
Yes.
What is a sitcom?
A sitcom is typically a 30-minute or less show, although lately there has been some that have extended longer that
The insanity.
are like slice of life comedy situations, I would say. Like, a lot of them take a look into some aspect of the everyday life and find ways of making it humorous.
So what do you think the sitcoms really resonate with people?
Because I think that people really, it feels more like everyday life and how it truly is compared to dramas.
You think that sitcoms are a mirror for the absurdity of life?
Yes.
Reflected back on us?
Absolutely.
Sometimes sincerely, sometimes less so?
And that's what I think so many shows, like, one of the ones that we'll talk about is everyone was like, I thought Parks and Rec was funny because it seemed out of this world, but, you know, it now seems like it parallels it. And I was like, that is always why Parks and Rec was funny, is because this happens.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, I always thought that the best sitcoms are the ones that have this, like, a very grounded charm that try and heighten and make the absurd things that happen in them happen more frequently. But they are not so absurd to be outside of the scope of what could happen.
Yes.
They're 100% something that could happen, but most people don't do these things most of the time.
Oh, that's what you think.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I mean, that's even when you go and tell someone a story about your life, you're going to talk about the crazy stuff. You're not going to talk about the boring stuff.
Right. A sitcom is really just
it's the highlight reels of the crazy stuff that everyone.
It's your TV best friend telling you about its best times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It just works.
And that's why all of these of the sitcoms that we're talking about, especially mine, I feel like really revolve around the dynamics of life and either the work relationships you have or the relationships you have that help make everything else worth it. Yeah. And that's why I really like these shows.
Yeah. I would say that sitcoms usually fall into one of two categories. You have the work sitcom and you have the family sitcom. Yeah. Family being a broad term for everything that's not work. Yeah. But they're typically like a friend group or something like that.
Whatever is important to you that kind of classifies.
Exactly.
Yes.
Important people in your life. You already said it.
I said it.
I'm just repeating you because I like to repeat you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Caitlin.
Yes.
Why don't you get us started?
Well, I'm going to talk about my first sitcom. And for me, the first one I'm going to bring up is, I'm trying to decide what I want to say for last. Ooh. Maybe I'll work my way back up. Is Better Off Ted. Better Off Ted.
Wow. Yes. When did Better Off Ted come out?
That came out 2009 to 2011, I believe.
That is not when I thought it came out.
I know it's not.
I thought it came out earlier. I thought it came out in like 2005.
Look, this show is a hidden gem. If you watched the Santa Clarita Diet, it was made by the same creator, but this show, I think, is better than the Santa Clarita Diet. Although you might really like it. But then if you really liked it, it has some of the same humor. It's just Better Off Ted takes place in this company that is doing wacky things. They have like these scientists.
It's like a science and research company,
Science and research company with
it's
like this marketing
a stand-in for like a pharmaceutical company.
Exactly. Yeah. And then he's kind of like a marketing guy who's like, or is he?
He's marketing like
it's been
product manager kind of thing.
Yes.
And like his job is basically to basically sell and convince his employees that their jobs are worth doing. Yes. Like he is basically sort of
he's like
this
internal
upper
communication. Yeah. As well as marketing, and the shenanigans in it are so good. Yeah.
No, that's one of my favorite shows kind of from that era. And I think it's funny. I think it came out a little too early.
I agree. Because it's one of those, I feel like if people watched it now, they're like, oh, I wish I would have seen it. And I believe it's on Hulu right now. When I was doing this research, we watched it on Netflix, but it is on Hulu now. So if you have Hulu, you should go and try to find it. Because
it's only, 3 seasons?
It's only 2 seasons.
It's only 2 seasons.
And also, besides one of these, my like top 5 that I'm talking about, and then I have some added ones that I'm like throwing in there. They've all been canceled.
Yeah, you have a bad history.
I find sitcoms that I really love, and no one else likes them. But if they would have known, they would have seen how great they were.
That is one of the shortcomings of sitcoms. Is like humor is so like subjective
Yeah.
to the individual experience. So like, I bet this show did not resonate with the sort of people that watch TV at night. But as far as like witty internet humor goes, it was perfect.
But it also cracks me up because I feel like it has that Scrubs humor. I feel like it has that Community humor. And I say that, and Community constantly was battled with being canceled.
Well, I think that the audience for those things, like the audience for these types of shows really like these types of shows, but I don't think they have broad appeal because of the sort of subject matter that's in them and stuff like that.
The cast in this is great though. And that's what I think about all of these is they're really good cast dynamics and the chemistry is strong in all of mine. That is what I would say is the best part of is like you can tell that everyone's having fun.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I really like that show. That show did a lot of stuff where it was basically like very tongue-in-cheek with how a company basically just runs your life and does so much of the things that you don't want that company to do.
Yes.
And how it doesn't care about you as an employee very well. It does a funny episode.
And that was even the great thing
oh my gosh.
Portia de Rossi's character, which if the name doesn't sound familiar, she was also Lindsay Bluth in Arrested Development, which is another great sitcom. She is kind of like what you're talking about. She's like the person that's like, ooh, it's just that's how the company and the main character Ted, better off Ted. He's the one that's like, no, he can't do that. Yeah.
It's so funny because Ted really does want to be a good person.
Yes.
And for the most part he is, but he's still sort of like a sounding board for the company.
Yes.
Like his solutions and the way that he solves problems, like he's solving problems for the company, not really for the people there. Like he wants to be there, and that's probably why Portia's character is such an interesting like foil, is because she doesn't care about the people. She genuinely doesn't care. No. It is really just what the company wants, and so many of their lines and dialogues are like, well, don't you care? And she's like, yeah, I care about the bottom line. Of course I care about those sorts of things.
And the scientists in this show, they're so funny.
They're such a cute little dynamic duo of the two of them.
Yes.
And they constantly are getting up into shenanigans and asking like weird questions. And it's like perfect example of here's two bored guys at work.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that's why I love it, because aren't we all 99% of the time bored at work?
Yes.
We're like, but what if?
Yeah, and it's such a funny thing because like they're bored at work and they have access to some of like the most sophisticated technology in the world. And so what they do in their spare time and boredom, because they are really smart, talented scientists, is they get up to ridiculous shenanigans.
Yeah.
Some of the best episodes are like when they're doing damage control and trying to like fix public perception and stuff like that. One of the episodes that stands out to me is when they install all of the motion sensing lights in the office.
Yeah, so you have to move, and like they're like, yeah, we're usually looking underneath like
and you have to move every now and then too.
Yeah,
but
to keep moving.
But the worst part about it is that it doesn't work for the black employees.
Yo, that's right.
And one of the two scientists is black.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is a real problem. And they go, we solved it. We hired you a white companion to walk into spaces with you.
Yeah, I forgot that was.
And it is the most ridiculous thing where it was like, we're not going to fix the problem. And obviously the problem is just like
removing the motion
sensing and just having a heart at all. But instead they're willing to go the route of literally hiring a body to just be in the room with them.
Now I feel like you might love this show more than me, because I totally forgot about that.
I really like that show.
Good.
That episode is so ridiculous and over the top. And that's one of the best episodes of them like really diving into the company doesn't give a fuck about you.
Yes.
Type episodes, which, just resonates with me.
Okay. You do your next.
Okay, before I do, I'm going to get Mallow some water because I think he needs some water.
Okay. And we're back.
See all these cool cups.
Yeah, I do love these cups. Not much of them are available, but I will put a link down below in our description. This is one of my favorite little artists. She is based out of San Francisco, and her shop is called The Little Red House. And I highly recommend. I have a lot of her art pieces like surrounding me. She did a custom mallow portrait for us. Our custom stamp that we send letters for. I love her. Tons of washi tape. She's just, everything about her is adorable, and those cups are our favorites, so highly recommend.
Highly recommend. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go in order of the show's appearance.
Okay.
Okay. So like, there's no top billing here or anything like that. There's not one show that I like better than the other.
Oh, okay. So what do you mean by appearance? Like
this show started in 2001.
Oh, okay.
The next show started in
2000. I was like, it's like, oh, you mean like, okay, I see. Go.
Okay. So I'm gonna talk about everybody's favorite show from the very early 2000s.
Everybody hates Chris.
That's not it. But it does have a killer's theme song. I'm no Superman.
You're like, I have no top billing, but here's one of the biggest sitcoms from our era.
Everybody loves Scrubs.
Scrubs is very good.
Scrubs is so good. I've heard, or I've not heard. I don't have any friends in the medical field that would converse about Scrubs with me.
Yeah, that's true.
I should bring that up with Austin the next time I see him. What did you think of Scrubs now that you're a PA? And he won't have an opinion on it. Anyway, so Scrubs is one of my favorite shows from the early 2000s. It's probably one of my favorite shows just in general.
Yeah.
For those of you who have not seen it, it is a show about a group of medical students, or not medical students, they're medical residents.
Yeah.
And how they get started at the hospital, the Sacred Heart Hospital, and kind of all of the relationships that they have with their patients, with one another, with some of the more senior doctors and staff there. There's a janitor who is a sadistic psychopath that is willing to torture one of the characters in perpetuity.
Funny. Yeah.
And it's really good. It's also one of those shows that just has killer music in it throughout. Yeah. That's always been one of my favorite parts of the show. And I think that most good shows that go the route of putting pop songs in their stuff, like, that's just a key to my heart.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you have a song that you can get stuck in your head and you can just kind of like play with the soundtrack, have fun. That's what we've learned about Korean dramas. They have killer soundtracks.
They have killer soundtracks.
I literally watched one. It's only 10 episodes and the final episode comes out this weekend, but its soundtrack is banging. It's amazing. It's so good.
But we're not talking about Korean dramas anymore. We're talking about American sitcoms right now.
Yes, of course.
And so what I wanted to talk about with Scrubs is, this is something that up to this point, it's 2001. I was just a wee baby.
A wee baby.
A wee baby, if you will.
A wee baby.
And up to this point, like, the TV had basically been like two things. You either have serious shows or you have comedy shows for me. And I know that, like, obviously there were like serious things that existed and other things. But for me, this was the first sitcom that really did the whole, like, oh, it's lighthearted, it's fun. Here's JD and Turk doing silly things. Eagle! So many fun stuff. And then, here's the episode.
And then 1-2 punch.
1-2 punch. Here's the episode where Dr. Cox killed 5 people. Yeah. So there you go. And it's such a memorable show. It's just so good. There's so many episodes that are just
compared to a lot of sitcoms, I think Scrubs perfectly handled the sad and the happy. Like, it so perfectly handles those moments that I think a lot of really popular sitcoms don't do as well, but it did perfectly.
And I think that it being such a true, like, I guess I didn't finish this point. It being such a, like, a rigorous medical show, like, like, a lot of people applaud how realistic it is with how the doctors interact with one another, how they interact with the patients, what it's like working for an actual hospital. The fact that it was that way, it feels so appropriate that they spend a lot of time dealing with the one thing that doctors don't want to do, and that's that patients die. Yeah. And that they get sick and you can't fix them in time, or you can't ever fix them.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many, like, great episodes, like the one where the new resident, because they've been doctors now, and they have different residents, and he shakes the old woman's hand, and like you kind of see, even and the way that they do it is so beautiful, where they show like the disease spreading on her and then all the things that he touched, and like
and it just shows like how interconnected and how dangerous a hospital is. And that episode is just so powerful because that woman, she's a repeat character, that she's been in and out of the hospital, and she finally got better. And this is this thing that nobody really had control over. Like, how could he possibly have known that he would be the thing that gave her the disease that got her sick? It's so powerful. And then all of the characters in the show are great. Even the sub characters, Ted, who is another Ted, who's the lawyer of the hospital. He's so unbelievably funny.
Yeah.
And just always trying so hard not to get the hospital sued. Another great character where it's the man, and he's got to serve the man, even though he... what were you going to say?
I was going to say, this sitcom, compared to any other sitcom, there's only one thing I will knock against it.
What's that?
I do not like JD. And I didn't know I didn't.
Yeah,
I've discovered this through rewatches that we've had. I really can't stand his character.
It is so frustrating. It's so frustrating because watching it as a kid and everything, I was like, oh,
JD gets it.
JD's so funny. He gets it. The world's out to get JD. I'm so like, why is Dr. Cox so mean? Why can't Turk see his side of the story and all this other stuff? But as an adult, rewatching it and coming at it from like the perspective of sort of like the Dr. Coxian person, I like, oh no, JD's a child.
Yeah. And
JD thinks that he's entitled and all these other things. And it's so annoying. You get comfy, buddy?
Yeah, he's cute.
Okay. I think he's comfy.
He's comfy.
All right. And yeah, that's I think one of the sad things about that show, for sure. Yeah. Is that to come back to it and see that JD just can't ever grow up. Even
he's a man child.
I know. Even the episodes where he's about to have a kid. And this is another episode I always remember when Turk like basically sits him down and is like, dude, you need to grow up.
Yeah.
And like Turk, who is also a man child, is like, no, man, like you don't get it.
Turk is a great character.
Turk is a great character. Oh no, you froze.
You froze for me.
Oh no. Okay, hang on 1 second. Technical difficulties.
Okay, you're unfrozen, but you're pixely now.
Okay, so are you.
Great. I love it. I love that we started having these problems we never had before.
Yeah, that's always great. But that Turk, Carla, Elliot, Dr. Cox.
Yeah. Oh, Dr. Cox is the greatest.
He's so great.
And then speaking of things that are popular now again, you will not find one of not a greater television arc than the Brendan Fraser arc.
Brendan Fraser's back, baby.
He's back. But if you're like, how can I properly celebrate this man and his filmography? Go watch his arc on Scrubs. Oh my god, his Scrubs episodes are some of my all-time favorites.
They're so good.
I love them, and I love him and Dr. Cox's relationship.
Yeah, and he's such a great like opposite of Dr. Cox, and as somebody that provides for JD this emotional connection that Dr. Cox never does, while Dr. Cox is all held off and everything. And then I don't want to spoil what happens because it really is very good. And these episodes with Brendan Fraser and Dr. Cox are just amazing.
They are.
Another good episode arc is the arc with Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, those are really. Yeah.
He's a doctor that is suffering from OCD.
Yeah.
And all of everybody in the hospital, it's so fun. Like everybody in the hospital is like annoyed with him because he's such a good doctor.
I believe he actually won an Emmy for this arc.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh, well, he's so good. Those episodes are so good. Everybody in the hospital is annoyed with him because he's such a good doctor. He's a know-it-all, all these other things. But you find out later on that like all of that is to compensate for the fact that he is debilitated by
his OCD.
And there's this just crazy touching scene where he's in there and he can't stop washing his hands.
Yeah.
He just can't stop after surgery. And everybody goes in to basically be like, hey, you're not better than me. And they all stop and realize, oh shit, we've all got our problems. And like in the grand scheme of things, me being a petty asshole is nothing. And I don't know. That's
what this show does great.
Oh, this show does all of that great.
Does perfectly.
And the beauty of it is like most of the funny moments, most of the like the things that the comedy, those aren't really the parts that you remember the show. Like there's little things here and there. Like I remember Eagle.
Yeah.
And and that coming up. I remember the dog. I'm trying to remember the dog's name. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't remember his name, but I...
But,
all right. Is
so
it
much
time
good.
to talk about my next one?
Let's talk about your next one.
This
I'll
is
shut up.
one of my all-time favorite shows, similar to how Scrubs was for Nicholas. This is mine for me.
I don't love Scrubs. What are you talking about?
You literally said all this.
Mhm.
This is, I already mentioned it earlier, but it is Parks and Rec.
Woo!
And how great is this show? Well, let me count the ways. You know, no.
Count the ways. Let me hear them.
So when it comes to a workplace comedy,
Mhm.
I this one to me feels so incredibly like this is a show that I know everybody. Like every person in this show is someone in my real life.
Yeah.
It's so familiar and homey, but it also is totally like living in Oklahoma and having some of the ideology that we do. You sometimes stick out as a red thumb.
Mm-hmm.
And this show is very much about this person who loves her town so much, despite how much it hates her.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter because she's going to make it better.
Right.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that no matter all the stuff people throw at her,
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't give up.
No.
And it's even, you know, you see the ones like there's the time where they all have to take over the city council meeting for Leslie,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, how does she do it? How does she not just
And they're all doing just a piece of what she does.
yeah, just a piece. Like everybody just does a piece of what she does, and then they're like, how does she do it? And of course she is an exaggerated character in the sense that
Nobody can literally not sleep.
like it seems like she wouldn't sleep.
Yeah.
But that is one of my favorite aspects of it is the cast, like just and even the fact that they are still so close today. The only ones that I think that are still as close as they are the Scrubs cast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are Donald Faison and Zach Braff still best buds?
Yes. They have a podcast together.
Oh, do they?
A Scrubs podcast.
I need to listen to that podcast.
Yeah, there's a lot. I've been recommending so many podcasts to you lately.
Yeah, and they're all just people who did old shows talking about their time doing that show.
But
So,
even the side characters. Oh, and there's like we were we were driving the other day, and you were talking about Italian restaurants, and I said, and that's a good Italian restaurant, and I know because I've been to Dallas. You lost yours, and you were like,
oh my God.
you were like, what? And I was like, that's a quote. That's Dr.
Saperstein.
Saperstein in Parks and Rec. Oh, and there's just little gems like that are just the most nonsense lines that you've ever heard in your life, but at the same time you're like, yeah, I can say that.
One of the things that I think Parks and Rec is the best at, and you kind of highlighted on this that there are people in your life that are like this, is I don't think any show does ordinary people quite as well as Parks and Rec does, both as like the main cast and as sort of the extras that are in the town that are just like,
yeah, they
don't get it. Like they're just not part of the conversation. And so whenever they come in with like their selfish shit,
yes,
you're just like, what is your problem, guy? I remember like the Paunch Burger episodes where she's trying to like not get the Paunch Burger built, and some dude is like literally walking down the street and goes, oh hey, they're putting a new Paunch Burger in, and it's just like he doesn't care about what that does to him.
This could be a park because he also likes Paunch Burger,
right? And like it's just sort of like a perfect analogy of just like how in general people care a great deal about lots of things, but in the end they're also very apathetic about lots of things.
Yes.
And I don't know. I love that the show does a lot of Ron versus Leslie type stuff. Oh yeah. And it frames it not as this person's right, this person's wrong. It frames it as two people who are fighting ideologically, but they believe very powerfully in the ideology that they represent.
Oh yeah, because Ron Swanson is, I mean, he's a self-defined libertarian.
Yeah.
But he also is very much like, yeah, I'm in government because I want to bring down the demise of government.
Yeah. And like the thing of it is, like what's so nice about Ron is like he's an argument in good faith. Like there's so many people out there who are arguing from positions of like bad faith. Like they don't genuinely believe that, or they don't genuinely believe that people should be worse off or all this other stuff or this like rogue individuality. But Ron Swanson genuinely believes that you as an individual should seek to better yourself as best as you can.
Oh yeah, well there's even like, I love it. It's when their sister city, who is like the worst, Eagleton, has to
I thought you were talking about the Venezuelan sister city.
Oh no, oh my god. That one's funny too though. But the sister city, Eagleton, and or their neighboring city is probably the better thing to say. Mm-hmm. And they have to disincorporate because they're so in debt. Right. And of course everything in Leslie, because how cruel they are and all the bad stuff that they've done.
Eagleton is the rich people.
Yeah. She's like, haha, you messed up and now you're coming to me. Yeah. And of course she wants to gloat and do a lap around. But at the end of the day, she loses her city council position and also make sure that they are incorporated and that the towns coming together, there was no burden on them so they feel like they're already part of the town. She helps solve their problems despite everything she is going to lose. Right. And I just,
that sort of selflessness is like, you want to believe that there are people like Leslie Knope out there that are willing to do that. And like, you want to believe that there are people like Ron Swanson who are willing to invest and believe in small business and that sort of thing, because that's sort of like that's what he does. And that like he invests in Tom, he invests in Andy, he invests in everybody, and that he believes that like if you provide mechanisms by which you improve your community outside of government, then you're a cool dude. But while as Leslie kind of does the opposite, where she believes that it is the job of civil servants such as herself to benefit the people, to enrich the lives of the people.
And that's why she tries so hard in making sure that the parks are good. That, small businesses are still able to be celebrated and seen among the big businesses. And
but we haven't even talked about the best character in the show. Who is it? I'll give you a chance. I'll give you 3 guesses.
Okay.
The answer is Jean-Ralphio.
I was like, you're not trying to
I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, I take it back. Little Sebastian.
Well, I was like, the correct answer is Little Sebastian, but I know you're not talking about Little Sebastian because you're a Ben Wyatt over here. Oh. You're like,
such a fun bit. Jean-Ralphio's hilarious. I don't really have anything besides he's just an awful human being. Yeah, and he's so funny.
If you're gonna make your money, you gotta get run over by a Lexus.
It's so good. Money, please.
Money, please. No,
that's Mona Lisa, but still.
That's his sister, but oh my god. They're so good. I love all of the stuff. How Jean-Ralphio is in love with Leslie Knope and all the little bits and gags that they carry out through the show. If you haven't watched Parks and Rec, 10/10 recommend. Unfortunately, it's only on Peacock because thanks, NBC.
You did it.
You did it.
You did it.
This is what Leslie Knope would have fought against.
You made all of the funniest TV shows of that era, and then you put them behind a bar.
All of them. So, except Community.
Oh yeah, but they don't like to pretend like they made that.
I know. All right, you go on to
Speaking of which, Community! Actually, that's not
in
order of appearance, but I do want to talk about it. So let's just segue right into that.
Okay, let's
Community.
Talk about Community.
That's Dan Harmon's baby.
Yes.
It's pre Rick and Morty. It's basically the same shtick, if I'm being honest. I love Community.
You do.
But I'm going to complain about Community.
What?
This is going to be a Community complaint.
I'm so confused.
Guess what? I'm taking them down.
I was going to come into it and say this was a show that was actually hard for me to get into.
Yeah.
Because it's about people who aren't that great.
Oh, that's not what I'm complaining about. That part's fine.
I know. You don't care about that. I'm saying, but it grew on me and then the show got terrible.
Yes. Now, I think that, where the show is strong at is I do think that the characters are really good.
Yes.
I think that the characters are great. I think that they're not good people, which is sort of the opposite of what Parks and Rec is, which is the characters are good people.
Yeah.
And they're like the environment that they're in is bad. Mm-hmm. I think that Community is kind of bad people in a bad environment.
Yeah, I was like, but there are some great.
But there are some great episodes. But here's the thing, and this is Dan Harmon and what he does all the time, and people get tricked by it. They're like lured in by Dan Harmon.
Yeah,
lured. And you've seen pictures of him. He's an alluring man. And
yeah, that's what I would say.
It's the eyes. If you look at his eyes, he's got soft, sad eyes. You can't look
They are
away.
sad.
They are sad. It's like the depths of that man's soul. So Dan Harmon does he does it better.
Okay.
And I'll give him that. But Dan Harmon does referential comedy. That is what he does.
Yeah.
He does that in Rick and Morty. He does that in Community. And I'm sure if there was a third thing, he would have done it in that. But
sorry, I just love if there was a third thing. Well, trust me. Yeah,
he made great characters. Okay, back to why Dan Harmon's bad. He does referential humor. He does it better.
He's bad.
What?
He's bad.
Dan Harmon's bad. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought he was.
He's one of the most beloved TV show makers of our time, but he's bad.
I thought you said he was alluring.
No, he's alluring. He's a sexy man. Yes.
Okay.
But he is not. He's bad.
Okay.
And I don't mean he's bad. I really don't. But I do think that his comedy and the way that he does things, he takes shortcuts.
He also, I feel like he gets really invested for like the first 3 seasons, and then he gives up. Yeah. He's like, okay, I did what I wanted to do.
I told my story.
Yeah. And then like he doesn't know how to continue it on.
Yeah, or he gets fired for being a bad person.
Yeah, but
that also happens.
Then he gets brought back, and then he doesn't know
because he apologized.
And then he doesn't know how to tell a story.
Right, exactly. So we'll see that story arc come out. We're on season 4 right now, so we're due for a Dan Harmon meltdown. But no, Dan Harmon does referential comedy. It's good. He does it really well. He is really good at telling a complete story, which I think that a lot of people aren't super great at. And sometimes you can see that in TV shows and stuff like that. He's got a story circle and all that jazz. But a lot of his jokes and a lot of the things that he do. A lot of the things that Dan Harmon do is he do make fun of other things.
Yeah.
Like a lot of his comedy, a lot of what makes it so good is it's so referential of other existing medium. It's so referential of other TV shows. It's so referential of other movies. It's so referential of all these other things. I think that they like the best Community episodes are that way. And that they're referencing Westerns, and like in sort of the generic sense that they reference Westerns. They're referencing post-apocalyptic things. They're referencing Star Wars. They're referencing documentaries. Like a lot of the best episodes of Community are like straight parodies.
Yeah. Of 100%
other things.
That's when you hear someone talking about Community, it's always the parody of it, not necessarily. Besides the one which I do think is one of the greatest television episodes of all time, which is the Darkest Timeline.
Yes.
But
even that's based off of something.
I know, but it's just like it's brilliant. It's so well done.
So that's why I think that Dan Harmon is both good and kind of like bad, but. It's one of those things, like, I want to look at it and be like, you're not coming up with original ideas. You're just reminding my dumb monkey brain that I really like Star Wars. And this is like Star Wars. I like Star Wars. This I must like. I think he does a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I can't tell if it's good or if I think it's good because I think it's like Star Wars.
Yeah.
So.
I will pause this because I didn't get to highlight a Parks and Rec episode. It's the only one. The debate episode. That is like what I think is one of the greatest Parks and Rec episode is the debate. Where she has her debate and
Bobby Newport.
Huh?
With Bobby Newport.
With Bobby Newport. But you see it and like all the shenanigans she has to go through. But then you also see like her friends who are putting on the fundraiser for her and how they've messed up in all of their ways.
And Andy's telling, he's just reading out the stories.
Rambo and Babe.
It's called Babe and it's one of my favorite stories.
And he's like, if you haven't seen, you should. And then Donna's in the front row. I feel like I already did.
Yeah, so good.
And then her coming back with the 1-2 punch at the end. Oh, it's just that is another one of my all-time favorite television shows. I always cry.
It's so good.
Episode.
I don't know.
But back to Community.
Back to Community. So I don't want to spend. We've already spent a lot of time talking about other shows, so we can go fast here, but that's basically all I really wanted to say is that Community is really good because it does play off that referential thing. I was going to get a little like cool and literary and be like William Shakespeare once said, like there was nothing new or original when people criticized his stuff. And he was one of the best like creators of his time. And so maybe there's something there that maybe there is like fundamentally what we really want is for people to just reference the things that we like and continue
100%.
talking about that.
I mean, that's what sitcoms them in and of themselves, that's what they do.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, there's obviously the broad appeal. If you're making fun of Marvel movies and doing a parody of superheroes and Marvel movies and that sort of thing and playing off of all those tropes, you're going to have the easier time of establishing that shared context that you need to in order to be really funny.
Yeah.
And so I think Dan Harmon does that really well.
Yeah.
But it's also like when you see it sometimes, you're always like,
come on.
This is your stick. You're just making me. I think it a lot with Rick and Morty a lot of the time.
That's exactly how I feel about Rick and Morty, but we're not talking about Rick and Morty.
I know, but you can't have a conversation without Dan Harmon without bringing in Rick and Morty. That said, all the characters are great. Jeff is amazing. Britta is amazing. But she messes everything up. I do think that they kind of like torpedoed her character a little bit.
Oh, definitely towards the end.
Towards the end. Like
rewatching it recently with you and actually finally watching the first season.
Yeah, she was much more...
a real character in the first season.
Yeah. And
even the second one.
Then she became more of like a punching bag and a joke. Troy and Abed are hilarious. They're just so funny.
Yeah.
All of the more surreal and like goofy episodes are... because of those two.
Oh yeah.
Annie
and Shirley.
And Shirley are so funny. I love Shirley's just sort of like very like subdued attitude that's sort of like hiding this like ready to go kind of character. She is so cool, and like the arc with her leaving her husband and kind of getting back with him and all that other stuff. It's so interesting and kind of like true to life. She also plays like this dominating character anytime we go into one of the more like surreal worlds. And then Annie as the sort of like Adderall overachiever.
The girl next door, smart cookie who is addicted to Adderall. So.
And how basically like she acts as this sort of like... She acts as this moral compass of the group a lot of the time. Especially against Jeff, which is what like drives them together. Like, this is good storytelling.
Yeah.
Dan Harmon, you did it. Pierce, also a really funny character. I wish that he wasn't the worst person ever. Chang is hilarious.
Yeah.
And
his character arc is really good.
It's so good.
But he's another character that I feel like as the show goes on that they didn't do a great job of maintaining his character.
Right. They took him and they kept making him crazier and crazier, and then they kind of made him pathetic.
Yeah.
And it was like, and then you have, I watched all the other seasons, and I know that they kept doing like replacement characters for the ones that they lost.
Oh, it never was the same.
It never was the same.
Yeah.
And it sucked that we kept losing characters, and it really kind of hindered the show. But it's so good, and like the fact that you have people like they still get together and like read for it and things like that. Like, again, going back to that. If you were an
NBC comedy, you are still somehow really close.
You're really close. You like they just make friendships there. They're actually all just
That's another one.
Sleepaway camps. It's actually what they are.
The guy that played Jeff Winger, their names are blanking on me right now. And Chang, they have a community podcast together.
Yeah, and I've seen stuff like that. I've seen they had a few people on and they were reading the episode where Pierce gives his sperm to everybody.
Yeah.
And
they had Pedro Pascal.
I was like, who was the actor?
I was like, if they wanted to reshoot Community and they had Pedro Pascal as Pierce, I would watch that show.
Oh my gosh. Pedro Pascal just can't keep his shit together because it's so funny. And for you, I a tube of my sperm.
Okay. So now we're moving to my next one.
Woo!
So continuing on my sitcoms that were canceled far too soon. We are starting off with Suburgatory. Which is a show I really, really love. This is also just an ode to Jane Levy and all the TV shows that she keeps starring in, which are spectacular that gets canceled.
Yeah.
She was also in Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. And the second season didn't start off strong, but it really picked up. And I feel like it just wasn't given a fair shot after the incredible first season.
Yeah.
And now it's been canceled, but we're getting like a holiday movie that might turn into more seasons.
Who knows,
we'll see.
man?
But Isn't about Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist.
This isn't the Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist.
This is about Suburgatory.
Exactly.
Which
you
is
talk about it.
It's so good. You know what the worst thing is about Suburgatory?
What is the worst thing about Suburgatory?
It's you can't buy the DVDs.
You can't even buy the DVDs.
Or you can't even buy them like digitally on Amazon Prime. You can't. I only own the first season. If I would have known this was going to be a deal, I would have tried to get them when they were first released.
Oh my god.
But now.
But how would you have known?
Now.
How would you have known?
How would you have known?
Yeah.
I thought it was a great show.
It was a good
loved
show.
it. But
Tell us about Suburgatory, because I have a feeling a lot of people haven't seen it.
Suburgatory is about this girl who comes to live with her dad who lives in, comes to live with her dad who lives in the suburbs.
Yep.
And she views it as like purgatory.
And where's she
Suburbs
from? She's from the city.
From city.
Yep.
Yeah, like New York City. Suburbs, purgatory, suburgatory.
Yep.
She goes to high school and she's like kind of stuck with people she feels like are either kind of strange or like the stereotypical
the
blonde-haired,
preppy,
blue-eyed,
yeah.
too preppy.
The high school mean girls.
The high school mean girls.
Mm-hmm.
And she marches to the drum. She marches to the beat of her own drum.
She marches to the drum of her own beat.
The drum of her own beat. That's how if you do want to watch this show, it is for free on the CW Seed. It
Wow.
just has ads. But
that's pretty cool.
So go and check it out after we talk about it. But there are. So, do you love Rick and Morty? Do you love Jerry? Well, he plays one of the parents in Suburgatory, and he's one of my all-time favorite characters. Like, there's an episode where all the dads form together and they form a band, and it's so good. I love that episode. Do you like SNL old cast members? Well, the guy that played Jerry and his wife in the show, Anna Geismister, we're both on Suburgatory. They were the married couple to two kids, one of them being like the football jock of the school and the other one being our main character's best friend.
Kind of an awkward girl.
And their dynamic as parents is hilarious.
What is
did you like Clueless?
I did.
Well, one of the guys from Clueless, the one who is like the super popular jock guy in the beginning that she doesn't end up with, is the dad.
That's the dad? That's Jane Levy's father?
Of Jane Levy's, Jane Levy.
Wow.
Also, Alicia Silverstone comes and does a Clueless reunion in the first season.
She does?
She does. Should I go on? I go on?
Nope, we're good. We covered all the bases.
No, I remember telling these people, I'm like, you have to watch Suburgatory. It's so funny because I love sitcoms.
Yeah.
And I specifically wanted to watch the one where it gets unveiled that the jock son of the SNL Rick and Morty couple.
Mm-hmm. I like how that's how you describe them.
I'm trying to describe it to people. They're both from SNL, but Jerry from Rick and Morty is
Chinese chicken?
But yes, whatever they do. The
band, yeah. But the son
is adopted, and he finds out he's adopted, and he has like this breakdown across town
where he takes his shirt off.
He takes off his shirt and just is like, adopted.
And just runs around.
One of my favorites.
It's like an uncomfortably long sequence, too.
Oh my god, I lose my shit. And they were watching it and they were like, and I was like, no, it's so good, especially if you want to watch the show
leading up to that point, yeah.
It's so good, but I think even watching it without knowing that and just watching him,
just have
the way that actor plays it is so good.
No, because he's just, they lean all into, he's just a dumb jockey, dumb. And so like, Adopted.
I
was trying to remember. That was the funniest moment from that show.
Oh, that or the dad calendar episode, which ends sadly, but all the dads competing to be the hottest dad for the calendar is hilarious.
I'm trying to remember more aspects of the show because like there's a lot in it that I don't remember.
The thing about it is, it does play a lot on family drama and the family dynamics.
Yeah.
And
I remember that the dad starts dating the mom of the mean girl.
Yes.
And that's like...
And they were like, maybe even... No, it was just them. I thought for some reason they were high school, but I think it's just... They grew close in the show. Mm-hmm. And it's one of my favorite... It's the season 2 finale. And he buys a house that they're supposed to buy together.
Yep.
But she breaks up with him a few episodes because she feels like she's more in love with him than he is with her.
Yep.
and he gets a dog and moves into the house, and he didn't want this house because he hated the stupid chandelier, and he tries to like pull it out, and I don't know, it's a really sad moment. Like, this comedy has a lot of sadness to it as much as it does humor, and I think I appreciate the sadness of it. Like, I really
well, I think it resonates a lot with you because Jane Levy is like the child of these divorced parents, and a lot of like the problems in the show is she has trouble kind of like being with her dad a little bit, but like she loves him, and you can see that they love one another
because she lived with her mom beforehand.
But she lived with her mom for a long time, and she moved out here because she had trouble fitting in even where she was there. And so she's just always had this sort of like this streak of wanting to be an outcast and forcing herself to be an outcast. And she comes here, and you know, suburban America is probably one of the places where it's like, if you don't tote the line, you will be an outcast, and it's small enough for everybody to know you and think less of you, but also too big for you to have any people on the inside of the school to really care about you. So it's
and I feel like I'm selling it terribly.
It's a good show.
What
it's
I'm
really
trying to
funny.
say is, if you grew up kind of in a suburb, or even just like a small town that has the same kind of feeling to it, and you felt like you didn't fit in, this show
that hits that nail.
It hits that nail. And they do a lot of sweet and cute things. Like, there's one of the couples who actually gets married in the show while they're still in high school, and that's a really sweet episode. Even though everyone's like, oh my god, you can't get married during high school.
That's illegal.
Well, they're both 18, but all of that is very sweet, and you get to see his proposal when he does this big proposal at school, and like, even though it's like, oh my god, they're only in high school, there's still a sweet and tenderness that you understand, that the love that they share.
Right. The real thing was they were just completely ripping off One Tree Hill with that.
So. Well, you didn't know about that show.
I didn't know, but now that I know, I'm upset about it too.
Yeah, that's totally what they were ripping off. But no, I'm not selling it well. Go watch it on the CWC. Check out trailers for it. But it is truly such a hidden gem of a show that was so good and so cute. It just never found its audience because it was on ABC. And if you were not Modern Family, which there's another one on here that had that same kind of problem. If you were not Modern Family, you did not get
then
promoted.
You didn't win. Nope.
Yeah. And so you just kind of got canceled after 2 seasons.
Yep.
All right. You.
Me? Okay. So I did Scrubs. I did Community.
Yep.
I want to talk finally, and we can talk very briefly about this.
Okay.
We can talk about How I Met Your Mother.
Okay.
How I Met Your Mother was the Friends replacement that came a couple of years after Friends officially ended.
I do want to pause this because
up?
the reason why Nicholas got into this show.
Why is it?
Is because when we first moved into our apartment from college and everything.
Yeah.
We didn't have Netflix. We didn't do Netflix. And you were like, I just kind of want something to watch. So I went out and bought you the first 3 seasons of It and 30 Rock on DVD.
Right.
And you just went whew, off of the How I Met Your Mother.
I watched so much.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was such a good show. So this show, it kind of has like a special place for me because we started watching it. It started in what year?
2000
like 2005.
Yeah.
So it started quite a while before we started dating.
It's also on Hulu.
Yeah, it's also on Hulu. It started quite a while before we started dating, but by the time we moved into our first apartment together and everything like that, it had been on for a couple of years, and it was kind of like in its like middle area, which is a very good area for most shows.
Oh yeah, especially when they run for as long as that one did.
Yeah, especially. And the characters of Marshall and Lily, I just immediately attached to and thought of us all the time. I just thought you were such a Lily. And all of the ways that you were sort of artsy and you cared about people. You were like the grounded one of the group, of like our friends and stuff like that, where you would be the only one of anybody's girlfriend or anything to be like, you're a shithead to my friend and stuff like that. And anytime that like, cause I had a pretty close knit group of like guy friends that I had known since school, and obviously like girlfriends would come and go. But when Caitlin came into the group, I think she was the only one that like legitimately fit in and legitimately like like called the shots in the way that Lily does. And as the show goes on, where you get to see more and more of Lily's machinations at work and how she sabotaged relationships, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not intentionally, and how she
so
did
we
all
make
this
the
stuff.
joke that I did this to Kyle.
That
Sorry,
you've done
Kyle.
this to Kyle, yeah.
But I didn't know I was until
You didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in hindsight.
It's
that
rewatching
Caitlin
this, I was like,
manipulated you.
oh man, I did this.
Yeah. And then like and then Marshall, I felt a connection to Marshall so much so, and that he was like this grounded dude who really wanted to do something and cared about stuff, and you know, I'm not a lawyer by any stretch of the imagination,
But I would say that the field that you're in, I feel like you are in like
it's technical in the same sort of way,
Yeah.
and it has a lot of the same sort of problems that he had, and that you know, you got the techie bros and
working
stuff
also
like that.
for a big company that can be a little soul sucking because you don't feel like you're getting to do what you're passionate about.
Exactly.
But it's like if you go and do what you're passionate about, there's no money in that.
Exactly.
And yeah.
And what the fuck are we gonna do? So Marshall and Lily were wholeheartedly the reason I got into that show. And again, it's one of those shows that you can map other people, and we absolutely did. We have like a Barney and a Ted. Kyle's our Ted.
Kyle's our Ted.
Kyle is
And
our
I'm just
Ted.
trying to get him to meet his mother, but
But nobody passes the goddamn back porch
not
test.
his mother. Yeah, I wish they'd pass the back
Yeah,
porch test.
I just want.
I wish.
I want to fucking drink mint juleps
Yeah.
with whoever his prospective partner
Or
is.
you know, hot tea in a mug, because that's my drink of
Look,
choice.
okay, right. It's summertime in this scenario. It's not fall or
Okay,
winter. You're gonna drink
is it-
hot tea outside in the summer?
Yes, I always do. Don't act like
Oh
this
my
is
God.
not a thing.
Anyway, so that's why How I Met Your Mother is great. Again, it's a show that just resonates with you as a person, and I think that for a lot of people who were like, "Oh yeah, I'm Marshall and Lily," which you're not, because we're Marshall and Lily.
But we're Leslie and Ben.
Yes, we're them too. Nobody can claim those two.
Yeah.
Those aren't. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's another one. Park and Rec, Kyle's Tom.
It's very easy. He's just one of our like best friends in those scenarios as well.
Yeah. My little sister's April.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Very much so. And I guess Ryan is pretty Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that works out.
Oh.
So that's How I Met Your Mother. Like,
Great show.
it's a really good show.
Last two seasons are terrible.
Last two seasons are terrible. The only reason that the last two seasons are terrible is because the show is How I Met Your Mother, and they bring in the mother, who is just a charming
so
actress.
perfect.
She was
I love
perfect.
everything she's in. She is just such a dime.
Yeah, she's what's that one show? Palm Springs.
Yeah, she was
with
in
Andy
Palm Springs.
Samberg,
Kristen Maloney.
Kristen Maloney.
Yeah.
She is so good. And if you can find her and stuff, she's awesome in it.
So good.
But they bring her in, and Ted and her
Are so good together.
They have so much chemistry.
And you can even hear them talk about this because they just committed so hard to a bit that they recorded in season 3, and they didn't continue to record these kids after that.
Yeah.
They're like, we have to stick to it. We have to
stick to it.
Even though, you know what would have been
What's
funnier?
the bit, Caitlin? That he ends up with the wrong person.
That he ends up with the wrong person. But because because the mother dies, and the kids are like, you were actually in love with blah, blah, blah.
And it's so infuriating.
But you know what would have been funnier? And this is the thing that just like drives me crazy about that bit, is it would have been funnier if you had them grown up and it's like, his story was so long that they aged. Yes, that would have been so much funnier.
It would have been so much funnier.
I don't understand.
And everybody would have been happy.
Yeah.
You know, like, look, you don't want Robin and Barney to end up together because that's real life or whatever the fuck you want to say. Who gives a shit? It's a TV show. I don't want real life in my TV show. I don't care for real life.
I'm also tired of all these shows that are
It's
like
real life,
it's
man.
like, yeah,
You're
we're
also a
comedy,
comedy, man.
but it's real life and that's why, like, learning that The Office, that the last season that they were going to actually have Pam and Jim divorced, but it did not test well. Like, audiences were not handling
People
it well,
didn't
so
like
they
it.
had to go back and
If you
rewrite
could
that
imagine,
and
that's the thing.
reshot that.
Well, because the thing of it is,
The series sets up how they're soulmates, and
I
you were
know.
going to have them divorce in the last season?
That's insane.
What? And they haven't even been married that long.
No, but that's the thing.
Oh.
That's the thing. And this is like, as far as like that whole real life stuff goes and things like that, because like How I Met Your Mother definitely dropped the ball there by trying to be real life or whatever.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, like,
And now they're doing How I Met Your Father. They're
I don't
doing
want
it.
I don't want to hear.
Hillary
It.
Duff is cast as the
I don't
lead.
care.
Okay, well,
I don't
I'm
wanna
telling
know.
you.
We'll probably watch it.
Well, of course
I'm just
we will.
mad. But the thing about it is, it has to work in the context of the show.
Yes.
And Dan Harmon, even though he's so fucking referential,
he works
gets
in
this.
the context of the show.
Yes. If you don't want characters together, they can't be soulmates.
Look,
if you don't want characters to fall in love, or you want characters to fall out of love over time or something like that, then there has to be a good reason for it.
Yeah.
For Ted to go running back to Robin after spending years of it never working the fuck out, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And how she never chose him, and now she's like, no, I'd choose him. And she never chose him, and they even did this whole thing where it's like he just was never going to be enough for her.
No.
And it
was only after he was genuinely off the table. It was only after he was with the person that he was supposed to be with
that she was like,
she was like, hold up, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
And it didn't make sense. It was unfair, and it was just cruel to do that sort of thing. So both Robin and Ted.
Yeah.
Like both of those characters didn't need that and didn't deserve that. And if you didn't want Robin with Barney, I get that. The two of them are so impulsive and explosive and that sort of thing.
I disagree. They were a great couple together.
I agree that they're a great couple, but they're so impulsive and explosive that I could see them blowing up their relationship over something stupid just for them to get back together. And that's how their relationship works. Their relationship literally is them pulling and pulling like magnets, flipping sides or whatever. But yeah.
Ugh.
The show was good.
Yeah.
And if you've seen the fan edit where they end it right after Ted finally meets the mom.
Where they should have ended it? Yes.
The show is How I Met Your Mother.
And that's how I Met Your Mother. Oh, it was so good.
It's so good. It's so sweet.
That's the one thing the last season did nicely well, whatever you want to say, is we got to meet the mother and we already built a relationship with her. We got a sweet story of how she came to this point.
Right.
We got, and when she's singing La Vie en Rose,
it's so good.
It's so good.
It makes you want to cry.
I do cry.
The episode where she meets Lily and the two of them immediately form a bond.
Yes.
And that whole she passes the back porch test right then and
at
there.
The beginning.
And it's just like, it's so perfect. And she's such a good character to introduce the show.
So what I'm hearing is I have to meet Kyle's girlfriend first.
Yes, you probably need to find a woman to introduce to Kyle.
Oh, this is such hard. Okay, well, anyways, we'll get into to my next one. This is another canceled one. God, and the first season's so good. I'm so excited to talk about this. It's this little gem of a show on NBC that aired during the summers called Trial and Error.
Oh, Trial and Error. I thought you were talking about a different one. Never mind.
No, the last one's from ABC again.
Okay. So Trial and Error. Great show.
So Trial and Error is another mockumentary type style TV show. But he's a big time lawyer from the city who gets stuck into a case that's like, it seems like it's in like North or South Carolina.
I think it's in South Carolina.
It's in South Carolina. Yeah. And the first client is John Lithgow, who I grew up on John Lithgow with Third Rock from the Sun. I think he is absolutely brilliant. He's so funny. And he plays this role so well. And just like the craziness of the show and because each week you're like, what happened? Yeah. Because you don't know if he's
hang on. What is going on in the show? So
okay, in the show,
he comes down to be the lawyer for
John Lithgow's character, who is accused of murdering his wife.
Right.
And throughout the show, he's like, I didn't murder my wife. I loved my wife.
Yeah.
Was a gay man. And he's like, it doesn't matter. I love my wife. We didn't have a sexual relationship, but we had
such a beautiful
friendship.
Yeah.
And we understood and we appreciated each other. And that's why I loved being married to her.
Turns out there was a note talking about how he was upset with her or something like that.
Yeah, he was mad at her.
Yeah.
Like, it was like everything he said, it got turned, it's like something came out that turned it around against him. So you do not know until the last episode if he did it or not.
Right. And but you are following it from the perspective of the lawyer from the big city, so like he believes in him and the town just doesn't. The town, even the other people working with him, he's got the one
the like deputy sheriff,
the deputy who is just
so funny.
He's just a goofball. He couldn't make it as a police officer because he's just too inept. And then
I love all his like, and this is my favorite thing: murder board, murder board, murder. And they'd have this whole murder board, and they were always like
trying to figure out what was it.
But then the secretary has like all these diseases. She has face blindness. She has to walk backwards out of the rooms. She just has all these random diseases that pop up every episode.
Literally, episode is a new disease.
And It's so funny. And things happen. Like, they'll get evidence and she's like, yeah, I gave it to you. And it's like, no, she gave it to someone else because she has face blindness.
She didn't know.
Oh, man.
And the show does a good job of painting like the town as an enemy.
Yes.
Not like individuals in the town, but like the town and the ordinances of the town, the laws of the town, the judges, the like everything. Like the town is like this sort of corrupt rural place in South Carolina.
Yeah.
But like the people are all good, nice people. And I think that's a really fun aspect of the show. The other lawyer is she's not a bad person, but she so desperately wants to prove herself as a good lawyer in this town.
Yeah, so she like goes out of the way and you're just like, oh, you're the worst.
Yeah, but you're also like, I get where you're coming from.
But like, in the second season, which is not as good as the first, but it's still like Kristen Chenoweth is the main person that he's like helping in that season.
Right.
And she is still so funny. Her lawyer. And, you know, they do this thing where they always do weird town laws. And that one was like lady driver. So like
lady driver.
For lady drivers, they have to have someone come out and like let the town know that a woman is driving. So a guy comes out and holds flags and is like, lady driver. It's so good.
It's so funny.
But what I loved about this show is all the little things that they did. Like the second season, someone comes in and they're doing like a true crime podcast.
Yeah.
And they release that actual podcast after episodes. So I would listen to that podcast on my way just because it was little gems of the show. And it's like, oh, what else is in there?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was a great little tie-in thing.
They did such great things. And the creator originally wanted to go on Netflix. He was really hoping Netflix would pick up the show after NBC canceled it. It would have been perfect on Netflix. It would have worked
really well there. Like none of the like besides the culprit or the person that he was representing, most of the actors were like relatively unknown people.
Oh yeah.
And so it was great.
So I highly, if you want something that is utterly ridiculous but has a stellar cast in the terms of like who the culprit is, and you want a mystery that's also feel good.
Yeah.
Trial and error.
Trial and error is great.
Every day of the week.
Yeah, it won't make you feel bad about anything, but you really do want to try and figure out the mystery as it goes on. And like, I would say in the first season, you're not gonna guess who was the murderer. You're not gonna get it right. But in the second season, like you can kind of follow the thread and figure out how it worked out.
Yeah.
But in the first season, no.
Well, I also want to highlight, because I was explaining this to you. The second season is a parody of, what is his name? 1 minute. I'm blanking on his name. Robert Durst, I believe is his name. And if you know that he had there was like an HBO kind of documentary series that followed him, which should give you an idea about Kristen Chenoweth's character.
You're leaving me in so much suspense because I don't know.
You don't know? Well, I mean, you know what happens, and that's literally what happened in real life with this character. Like the thing she does in the bathroom where they catch her on Hotwire. Yeah. That happens with this Robert Durst character in real life. Like this is like that show was just a parody of real life, which is why it doesn't have the same kind of like suspense and hook that the first season does.
Gotcha. I had no idea. I didn't know that was the case. Yeah. At all. That's cool.
So
it would have been kind of funny if they went that route with the show as it kept going on, where they did high
I think that was kind of I'm pretty sure if they would have done the next one, it probably would have been like an OJ trial.
Yeah, and they would have done a lot of the same sort of stuff there.
Yes.
Yeah, these sort of like almost unsolved cases and things like that.
Yes, yeah, it is Robert Durst. That is who.
I will say this, if you do watch the show, the killer is revealed in episode 1 of the first season.
You just don't realize it.
You don't know it until the end, but the killer is revealed. So like look out for it because it's there.
Blinking, you miss it. But that's truly,
it's so fun knowing that now and seeing it.
Oh my god, the way that it's so good. But I don't know if it's on any platform because it's one of those that it didn't have like.
You didn't have enough
audience.
to go on Peacock.
It might be on Peacock. This was one of those shows like Suburgatory. If I would have known. And I started doing this after Suburgatory. If a show gets canceled and I love it, I go buy it digitally automatically on Amazon Prime because I'm not losing access to that show. And we own Trial and Error on Amazon Prime. Greatest buying making decision we've ever made.
It looks like it's not on anything. So
I didn't think it was.
You can purchase it on everything, but you can't just watch it.
Yeah, that's what ticked me off because you like purposely make it where its audience can't grow.
Yeah. And I think
this didn't come out that long ago. Like this was rather recent.
2017.
Yeah. So
it's really funny. And as people who have kind of lived in the South for the good part of their life, like seeing it characterized this way, it's very funny.
It is because there's also the thing like they don't shit on it. Because this guy's from the city and he comes here and he falls in love with it and he decides to stay.
Yeah.
He loves the people. He loves the heart. It's just like you also know the shenanigans that happen and you're just like, only in a small town.
Yeah. And that's why I really wanted to highlight that the bad guys of the show are almost always like the town and the weirdness of the laws and like the systems that are in place in this small town that allow it to exist in the way that it does.
Yes.
And Kristen Chenoweth. She's also a bad guy.
Yeah, well, because in the second season they do it where it sets up that a lot of the things that are set up in the town are because of her family.
Yeah, because of her family and the legacy of her family. And so like I think that is really, really good and kind of it highlights the sort of things that are wrong in a lot of places. Is it's not people. It's really not the people who are the problem. It's the legacy of the town. It's the legacy of the place that you live, and that I think that makes the show super good.
All right, go to your next episode.
My next one is going to be The Good Place.
Oh.
Because I really just wanted to talk about ethics and philosophy for the rest of the time.
This show, this was one of the compliments I received when I worked at one of my jobs. The high up boss there, the super artsy guy. Yeah. I talked him and his wife into watching it. And we had a Halloween event later on where it was like a 5K and we were supporting like the runners and everything. And him and his wife showed up and they both thanked me for recommending the show to them because of how good it was. He was like, I was like, why did she love it so much? And then we hit the finale of the first season and I got it. And I was like, yes, I know. Yeah. Because I was the same. I was like, okay, this is cute, but like.
I don't understand.
Yeah. And then after the finale of the first season, that show, it just like.
I really don't want to spoil it for anybody.
We're not going to. We will.
But the finale of the first season is one of the greatest like twist endings ever. And it really just like it puts the whole rest of the season into a totally different perspective. Yep. And it makes it so good.
And not only this show is a very short show, but this is all they wanted. It's only 4 seasons, and that's all they wanted. This is made by Mike Schur, who also made Parks and Rec. Did honestly, even though I know it's not popular, some of my favorite seasons of The Office and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Yep. And then he's also done a new show on Peacock called Rutherford Falls, which is supposed to be similar to Parks and Rec, which I really wanted to see, that has Ed Helms, and it kind of plays off of things that they set up in Parks and Rec, but it's not Pawnee. It's like
you just have to decide that you want to get Peacock.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I just am tired of having to pay I'm tired of paying of all these different
paying
stupid
a man,
services.
you know, man?
Yeah, I pay for Raccoon Viki so I can watch K-dramas.
Yeah, that's expensive.
Yeah.
It's like $4.99.
It's $10 a month.
Oh my God. But we're not talking, this isn't the K-drama podcast. You can't, no. This is the Good Place podcast.
It's my life. But
so the Good Place
what I was trying to say though is the first season finale and the series finale are
so amazing phenomenal. Episodes.
So
amazing
phenomenal.
Episodes.
Like, so good.
So the show, for those that don't know what it is a group of people are dead. Yeah. And this takes place with them in the afterlife and kind of all the shenanigans of being in the afterlife and kind of exploring. It's sort of like a non-religious representation of a heaven and hell.
situation.
Yeah, it's like they kind of like took all of the specificity of the religion out of it, and then just said, yeah, this is what heaven looks like, this is what hell looks like. And there's obviously allusions to this sort of thing. It's got one of my favorite sort of humors in the kind of like senselessly bureaucratic thing.
Yeah.
And like, oh yeah, the heaven is filled with these bureaucrats, or not heaven, but like, there's like soul counters who they're in charge of deciding where people go, and they're like senselessly bureaucratic to the point that they don't understand why the system is broken. The show spends a lot of time talking and really diving into some philosophy and ethics, and using that as a jumping off point for the show to then explore those concepts kind of in a real sense.
Yeah.
And so it's really fun because like none of the thing, like it's a show that's not meant to be like watched on a college course or anything like that. So you're not going to get like crazy high level philosophy and ethics and stuff like that, but you're gonna get like loosely like an introduction to that sort of thing and things like the trolley problem and Kierkegaard and
it's just about a group of people who make each other better.
Yes, and that's sort of the like sole takeaway from the show is that you can be a good person, you can be a bad person, but largely what determines that is not necessarily entirely up to you. It has a lot to do with the sort of people you surround yourself with and the sort of people who are going to make you
push you outside of your comfort zone.
Push you to be the better person. Because anybody in a vacuum can't be good, and anybody in a vacuum can't be evil. They can only be better versions of themselves or worse versions of themselves, and it's so good.
Also, there's my little Chidi
and Eleanor. Yeah.
Funko Pops, so.
Up there on the lovers.
Yeah, Leslie Knope is also up there, but they just recently released a Ben Wyatt one, and it hasn't shipped yet, so he will be adding up there as well. So,
Soon.
Yeah.
Soon.
There's Russell Westbrook.
He's not up there with his wife, but he is up there because he's a significant part of Caitlin's life.
Of course.
So, and The Good Place is really good at all of that. And I think that it does a good job of like answering the question of like, what is something that the human experience is lacking? And I think that ultimately what the show kind of postulates is more time.
Yeah.
And that's really all that it is.
And it's so sweet.
And so it's a really good show that anybody with the right people in their life and with enough time can be the best version of themselves, and they just need those two things. Without those two things, most people will fail, and very few people can make the leap to being good people. But with those two things, anybody can. And I think I really like that message that the show has to offer, and the way that it asks the characters to move on and that sort of thing. And the characters are so true to themselves throughout the whole show. Jason Mendoza is one of the funniest fucking characters.
Oh God, he's one of my favorite characters who's ever existed. There's a season. There's an episode in season 2, which is just like, it's one of my favorite episodes of the series. And Jason? No, we're not gonna. Yeah. Oh man.
It's really difficult to talk about the show without talking about the.
Here's a Pikachu balloon.
Yeah, without talking about the twist. Ted Danson. Ted Danson is so good as Michael, who is the architect of the town.
Kristen Bell is
so funny.
Is great as Eleanor. Kind of plays the opposite of a lot of the characters that she's been in the past. Yeah,
she does not play. Well, she kind of reminds me of Veronica Mars. Yeah, of this sort of like the world, it's fucking nihilistic way of looking at things.
And I think she's in a TV show on Showtime called House of Lies with like John Cheadle, where I think she plays a similar character. Yeah. I think she's actually like gets together with Ben Schwartz's character on the show, because that was something they talked about, because they're both on Parks and Rec as well.
Oh, really?
What Ben Schwartz is John Ralphio.
Yeah.
But totally different characters. Mm-hmm. So it's everyone. I'm so glad that all of the actors that are in the show have gone on to become bigger actors. Mm-hmm. They're all just so great. I'm going to go ahead. I saw a fan cast and we were all about it. Do you remember this fan cast?
I don't know if I know.
It's for Superman.
Oh, with Chidi?
Yeah.
Yeah.
William Jackson Harper would be a great Superman Clark Kent switch duo, because when he takes off his glasses, you're just like, who is that man?
Who is that man?
He
So
has
beautiful.
the Clark Kent built into him.
No, he would be a really good pick for a Superman, no doubt.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. I guess now it's time for my final sitcom.
Yeah, let's hear it.
This one, I haven't found a sitcom I've loved as much since this one.
Okay.
That's like come out recently, not one that we haven't already watched.
Excuse me.
It also ended too soon. Sometimes I had a really weird dream even about this show recently.
The suspense is killing me. What is this show?
Single Parents.
What?
You knew what it was.
I did. I was facetious for the audience's sake.
This show was on ABC.
Was it?
So I believe that the episodes are still on Hulu, but similar to what I said before, it got canceled, so I bought them digitally on Amazon because I will not be without them. Yeah.
And it's great. It's got 2 seasons, so it's not really not expensive.
Well, what's crazy about it is it actually had a pretty decent audience, and people were really upset about this one getting canceled.
Yeah.
And it had some, like, fan movements on social media. It just like ABC. So from what I understood is the way that they did production. It was not one where like they could easily sell it. So the property just kind of died, even though it did have a lot of force behind it.
What do you mean they couldn't easily sell it? Like,
it was
the production was so in-house that they weren't able to...
Yes, I think that's what it was.
To give it to like Netflix or something?
Yes.
Because it would be using ABC facilities?
Yes, that's why it couldn't be shopped around. Was because...
I see.
Also, funny story.
Everybody just moves at the beginning of the first season.
Mike Schur's wife was the overhead of this show.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, that's cool.
So I was like, of course I loved it. That explains a lot
of the vibes there.
Yeah, he even came on and directed some of the episodes.
Oh, really?
He did, yeah.
That's cool.
This show has a great cast. It has Leighton Meester from Gossip Girl, Blair Waldorf. That's your main lead. Then you also have Taram Killam, who was on SNL, also married to Colby Schmolder, a.k.a. Robin from How I Met Your Mother.
I thought you were going to say that girl from S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Marvel movies sometimes.
Oh, yeah. What's her name in those?
I don't even know her name in those.
Maria Hunt?
Sure. I believe you.
I know it's Maria, but I can't remember. It has Brad Garrett, a.k.a. the brother from Everyone Loves Raymond, which was one of the best parts of Everybody Loves Raymond. His character was great in it.
If you ever need a guy with like a suspiciously deep voice, he's your man.
He's your man. And then it had a lot of newcomers too. But every now and then you would have Adam Brody, aka Leighton Meester's husband, aka Seth Cohen from OC. He would come in and he was like her ex-husband. But it's about...
Do you know who played Poppy and Miggy?
So I know that the guy who played Miggy's name is Jake Che.
Okay.
I don't know Poppy's name. And it's only because I had never seen her before. And I had actually known all of the other ones. Jake Che, this was like his big first starring role, but I followed like a film critic who did a short film, and he was the actor in it, which is why I knew his face.
Gotcha.
It's really random. Haven't seen the short film, just
saw it on Twitter.
I'm going to pull up her name real quick because I really love her. I just like don't know her name. I know she was also in the Keenan sitcom that's on right now.
Yeah.
She's like a therapist in it. Which my dream was about her character going off and living in another town with her. And it was called like Single Parents Love Stories. Kimberly Lewis Davis. So.
Is that? Okay.
That was my dream. And so I was like, what? They're only bringing her character back? This is bullshit. It's about all of them. Because it's about these parents who all of their kids are in
school together.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what grade, because I think is it third grade the first season, fourth grade the next one?
It's like third or fourth grade. Isn't Poppy's kid? He's a year older, isn't he? He
is a year older, but he's in everyone else's grade.
Oh, did he get? Okay.
Yes, remember, because they do that in the second season with the soccer thing.
I gotcha. Yeah.
But this show is basically about, like, you know, no one else has your back, but this group of single parents have each other's back and helping manage their kids' lives and making sure that they have the support they need from all of the different people that they have.
And the show very naturally, like, falls into this, like, so, gosh, I'm trying to remember everybody's names in the show. Angie and what's the main guy's name?
Will,
Angie and Will are very obviously supposed to be like sort of the stand-ins for like the young couple.
Yeah.
And then Poppy and Douglas.
Mickey. Oh, I thought you were.
What?
I thought you were talking about it was Mickey.
No, Poppy and Douglas are meant to be like almost like a grandma grandpa.
Yeah,
type
they're
thing.
like they're like the old. I mean,
Poppy's not old enough to be a grandma.
Miggy, but like, or not Miggy. Douglas is like his story is he married a stripper who got pregnant and then passed away.
And he already has like an adult son.
Yeah, and so he got left with two twins.
Two twins. Yeah, that are, you know, third graders.
Yeah.
And they kind of like they fulfill the role, at least in my mind, as like grandma and grandpa. Yeah. And then Miggy is like he's the cool uncle.
Yeah, Miggy is like Poppy knows Miggy because she rents the apartment to him and has a soft spot for him. He's the only one that doesn't have a kid in third grade. He just has a baby, and she kind of like helps him take care of his baby.
Right, because he's doing it by himself.
Yeah, he's supposed to be someone that's like our age, and he just or even younger.
Yeah.
And
in his like mid-20s.
Yeah. And it's just, he's like a kid who doesn't know what he's doing. And so he's helping raise all of their kids as well as raising his baby. And the kids' interaction, and the kids in this are phenomenal.
Really yeah.
Like sometimes kids aren't great in sitcoms and that's why they don't usually add them. This show said, no, the kids are going to be great in sitcoms.
Well, you know what they kind of remind me of?
What?
So like in the early days of Modern Family, they had all the kids.
Yeah.
And like Haley and Manny were the only two that were worthy of like really like doing long form episodes of. Yeah. Just because Luke, the actor that plays Luke, I don't know, he's not always the best. And gosh, Alex, I was like, I can't remember the little girl's name now. Alex was too typecast as like this like almost mean kid.
Yeah, nerdy mean kid.
Nerdy mean kid.
They didn't soften her up. They didn't soften her.
And then so Haley, they did all of the like classic teenage girl things, and then Manny, they made him just sort of like almost an adult character that was in a kid's body. And I think that Single Parents did a really good job of kind of using that same sort of Manny format to be like, oh, these kids are actually just like adults already, and they talk about adult things and they think about things like adults, but then, you know, chips are down, they're children. And so like every now and then they're like irrational about something that is like something a child would care about.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh.
One of my favorite is the Halloween episode, and Graham is supposed to be a spider.
Graham is Angie's son.
Graham is Angie's son, but Angie forgets his costume. So that she just gets a bunch of trash and says that he's like the like trash island that's floating out in the middle of the ocean. Yeah. And she's like, it doesn't get scarier than that. And he's like, wow, yeah.
That cuts deep.
So then he goes around and he's like, yeah, I'm the trash island.
And it's great, you know, because like the kids, I think it does the kids well because it doesn't make the kids for the kids' sake.
It also feels like it's coming from people who have kids these age and understand them. Like sometimes I think these writers do kids and they are like, what are kids like?
Oh, kids are just cute. Oh, hello, mister. Yeah. I am a kid and I'm cute.
Oh,
thank you.
Give me money.
Give me money.
These are like, no, kids are weird as shit. Yeah. But so lovable and so fun.
And the reality of it is they can think like adults.
Yes.
They can do things like an adult. Yeah. They just lack the experience of an adult to realize that an idea or a plot or a thing is not quite as well thought out as you think it is.
That's what Douglas always jokes about, because his daughters, he has two twin daughters, and they're like, yeah, we're like engineers and we don't need our dad to take care of us. And he's like, yeah,
I really just provide money for them.
Yeah.
That's it. And like, and Graham is such a thoughtful,
oh my god,
and like, emotionally mature kid.
It's like the son every mother wants nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah. He just really cares about his mom, but he is also like he's just a sweet, loving little boy.
Yeah.
And then what's Will's daughter's name?
Oh, and I love her,
Sophie.
Sophie.
And Sophie is just sort of like this young, determined woman who like really wants to be something.
Yes.
And I think it's great because like I feel like all of the kids a lot of the time resonate with one of the other parents more than their own parent.
Oh yeah, there
like,
will be like because there's like the one where Graham almost takes on Poppy's wine bar, which she owns like a wine library called the Winery.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's like serving her alcohol and he's like, yeah, so tell me about your day.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh man, you don't even.
Yeah.
And then Poppy's son, which his name is Rory. He's like, they have him. He's like a gay kid who is very proud of himself. And so you get to see him be flashy with his outfits and everything. And she's like, you go, Rory.
Yeah.
And
he like resonates really well with Douglas.
Yeah.
Who is supposed to be sort of like this very kind of like old school, almost conservative character in the show. And like, his child foil is Rory, and the two of them are like they enjoy the finer things and the high class things and all this other stuff. And so
just to explain it, like the first episode is a perfect, like the first season is at first it's a little unbalanced and then it really finds its footing, and then the second season really carries into that even more, which is why I'm so sad it got canceled because it was really finding its groove.
Yeah.
But Will Cooper like moves into town. He's kind of this like overprotective dad who is scared of letting go with Sophie, and he finds it and he goes, well, you know, every parent needs a village, and they're like, oh my god, shut up, like no, I don't want to hear that. But then in the end they come out into the middle of this like courtyard, and Rory has been wanting Douglas to dance with him because he's like doesn't have a male role model, so he like really looks up to Douglas. And then there's so much, and they end up seeing, I think, Let It Go by Frozen. It was either that or it was like the song from Moana that everyone loves. It's one of those two. And it's like all of them dancing in the courtyard to that. And then at the end, Will is like, yeah, I did find my village. And it's so cute. It's just like, it's such a cute show.
It's a good show. And it really falls into that the family sitcom kind of trope of a group of people that you can rely on and sometimes not rely on, and that's a frustrating aspect of the people you love being in your life.
Yes.
It's a really good show.
It is.
And so are we ready to cap it off?
I'm ready to cap it off.
We're gonna do a longer episode about this one, right?
Yeah, we are. We're gonna do a farewell title of our sex tape
to Brooklyn Nine-Nine,
which is a joke from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. If you
Brooklyn Nine-Nine is a great show. It was something that like when it first came on, I wasn't like super into it, but I grew to really, really like it as it went on.
Okay, peeps, I'm gonna lay down the law.
Okay, lay down the law.
This show came out and I watched it and I was like, this show is really good.
Yeah.
And no one in my life, Nicholas wouldn't watch it with me.
Yeah.
No one watched it with me. It is now the show that everyone in my life that I recommended to has now watched it and has loved it. And it's like, out of all the shows I've recommended, this is the show that everyone's like, yeah, Brooklyn Nine-Nine was really great.
Yeah.
And I was like,
slept on that.
I tried so hard, but I could not get anyone. It wasn't until like the middle of the second season that you started watching with me.
And it's a really good show.
Yes, it is
a really good show. The show is, for those that haven't watched it, it's a show about a group of detectives that are part of the NYPD Precinct 99. The detectives are Jake Peralta,
Andy Samberg.
There's Broyles. There's
also a comedy figure.
There's Rosa. There is Terry.
Terry Crews.
There is Amy Santiago. There is Captain Holt. And there is, of course, Scully and Hitchcock.
And then in the
earlier seasons, Chelsea Peretti.
Who, I'm trying to remember her name in the show.
I know, I'm trying to remember it either. Gina.
Gina. Yeah. Gina knows best.
Gina knows best.
Yeah.
And the show just basically is kind of a reimagination of like a procedural cop drama as a comedy.
Yeah. But you know what? It actually hits on topics. Like it talks about. I get irritated because obviously a lot of people
after the 2020 and people were really not keen on cop shows and shows that
but
like
it's
Brooklyn
funny to
Nine-Nine
me because they went after shops like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and not after like Law and Order, Blue Bloods, like all these other
where those shows very, very obviously do say that cops are good and they don't really show a lot of examples of
but I feel like
bad cops.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine throughout its whole run, it's one of the things that I've always liked about it is that it talks about like it's like this is this precinct
is a
like
good precinct.
It's your workplace, it's your like these people,
right?
But it's like but don't get twisted of what's outside of this precinct because it plays a lot on like you see a lot of the dirty politics behind the scene with Captain Holt's character and his constant like trying to become
he's trying to become commissioner of
the police and like because people are like, oh yeah, you should do that, and all the things that happen with him throughout it.
And there's a lot of dirty politics that play out that prevent him from reaching as high as he can. And
you see racial profiling
in the TV show. You see just rampant abuse of power. You see internal investigations through the Vulture.
Yes.
And be like where he goes after things and like steals people's credit while also not really doing the job of internal affairs. And part of what makes the 9-9 such a beacon of like a good place to work and a good place where good police work gets done is Captain Holt's very strict adherence to the letter of the law and to the idea that being a police officer is not something that makes you a good person.
Yeah.
It is something that a good police officer has to work very hard and care a great deal about the community that they work in to be.
Mm-hmm.
And like that is like Captain Holt's whole thing. And the show goes into a lot of detail about police officers in the New York Police Department who don't meet that standard and actively fight and work against the sort of things that Captain Holt does because they think that he's being heavy-handed or just like too much and all this other stuff. And that's constantly a theme of the show.
The main character of the show, Jake Peralta, became a detective because of the Die Hard movies.
Of the Die Hard movies.
So he's like someone who doesn't almost take it seriously.
Yeah.
And Captain Holt comes in and he like requires a uniform, and by uniform it's like a tie with your outfit.
Uh-huh.
And the first episode explores why maybe Jake should be more open to the stricter boss and the rules that he has, because like the tie comes into play and he's able to like break down the case because of the tie.
Yeah.
And so they build this respect and admiration for each other out of it.
And I think it's interesting. And the show does a lot of things because like Jake came to become a cop because he saw John McClane kicking butt and taking down the bad guys. And that is the attitude that he came into the police department with, is that I'm the good guy by virtue of who I am and by virtue of the profession I chose. And I'm going to take down the bad guys. And I'm really not going to think about or care about the consequences involved in the way that I do my work. And Captain Holt, on the other hand, is a totally different character who became a police officer and rose up through the ranks to reach the position that he did in a time period of great strife to be a gay black man in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And him reaching to where he did and becoming what he did is because he was so strict. He made sure he didn't make mistakes. He didn't give people excuses to say that he wasn't a good cop. Yeah. He didn't give people excuses to say that he wasn't doing the job to the best of his ability. And he didn't take the job lightly because it gave him an opportunity to give back to his community in a way that Jake didn't need to.
The writers of the show take everything they do very seriously.
Yeah.
And you can see that, and we're already seeing it play out
playing out
into
this
this season. I'm excited to see how it continues on and how they deliver. Originally, they had written like half of this season before all this stuff happened, and they threw all of those episodes out and restarted.
And I think that just really shows that they understand
Yes.
and care about what this show presents. That this show isn't meant to be
a fluff piece.
A fluff piece that tries to make light of the profession of being a police officer, or what that means and what that relationship with ordinary people is. It is a show that is talking about sort of the fundamental systems that are in place that make policing in the United States potentially problematic.
And that's what Mike Schur Productions are great at. Like, they have a great writing team. All of their productions, they put so much thought and effort, and they always do a thing, I feel like, where they're like, we're not trying to blame anyone. No. But we want to address the problem.
No, and I think that they did, even in this latest episode, the first episode of this latest season, they do kind of the same thing that happened in Trial and Error. Yeah. Where they go out of their way to be like, these people, the people that you're watching, there are bad people, don't get me wrong, that there are bad people that exist who are out there that are trying to just undermine and be shitty. But in reality, it isn't these people that are kind of the problem. It's the fact that there's this system in place, the town, the institution of policing in New York, and the politics and the hierarchy involved in all of that lead to there being these problems. And like, I can't get over this latest episode where they bring up that problem, and they bring up that issue about a woman getting accosted just for having groceries. And the woman is the cop, the commissioner, not the commissioner, the captain that they bring it to. She's like, oh yeah, we'll deal with it. And then when confronted with the reality of, oh, you have concrete evidence that this totally happened, I can't do anything. I can't help you.
Yeah. And then they did the thing where they like did and if we did this, the blah, 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 blah. And it was just like this system that shows you like the system is so... They
took a montage for them to go over all of the reasons why they can't. Yeah. All of the reasons why they can't pursue this like they would. And one of those reasons being that if she did this, she gets blackballed. Yeah. Especially because she's a female captain. And just by the virtue of her being a specific gender and having to have worked so hard for her position, the same sort of thing that happens to Captain Holt, that when Captain Holt wants to go in an earlier season and deal with a fact that a police officer racially profiled Terry in his own neighborhood, he doesn't want to go because of the same sort of system that's in place. He doesn't want to get that cop in trouble because it could be bad for Terry, it could be bad for him. And they're in a better position so that they can actually do good rather than like, so maybe it's worth one bad dude.
But then he ends up standing. And that's the show obviously can't tackle everything in one episode. Yeah. So it set it up, and we're obviously going to see this play out through the rest of the thing. But they always have someone who steps up, and I'm excited.
Tries to do the right thing.
And I'm excited to see how this season plays out, but it's a very good show.
It is,
and I highly all of Mike Schur's productions, his staff, his teams, they're so good, and they try very hard to bring material worth diving into to your television screen.
And I think that one of the things that he does really well, and everything in all of his shows, and it's a testament to why Brooklyn Nine-Nine is such a good show, why Parks and Rec is such a good show,
why Good Place is such a good show.
Place, The Office, why those are all good shows is because the characters that he puts in it are real, they're tangible, they are...
You know them in your everyday life. You've been a part of the culture that
they live in.
That they live in.
They want to be good people.
Yes.
Even if they don't always live up to that expectation.
That's the thing I like about his show. Compared to all of these other shows, the thing about Mike Schur Productions is they want to be good people, even though sometimes we always fall short of that. It doesn't mean that we can't get back up and try again. Yeah. And,
It's so good.
So
and
good.
That's why I was raised on TV.
What? I was the TV person.
What? No, I was the TV person.
Oh,
Whoa, hold up. Well, I think that we've said all we need to say.
Yeah, that was, I feel like this was a fun episode. Next week, we will be back to talk about greatest TV dads. Originally, the schedule was supposed to come out around Father's Day. So now it's coming out late, which is why you're getting greatest TV dads now and not like moms or just families. We're talking about dads.
Right. Obviously, we're about 6 months out from Father's Day. That's not true. We're only like 3 months out. So we're doing a 2-month anniversary of Father's Day. 2 month
anniversary of Father's Day. And I'm excited to dive into that one because there's only one TV dad that matters in my book.
Right. And that's we're going to do a full 45 minutes devoted to that character and then maybe some others.
Yeah. That character's great. But thank you so much for joining us and we hope to see you next week. Bye.